My 20 female sisters, 28 female behavior towards my boyfriend, 21 male is horrendous. 2. April 28, 2020. This is going to be long. I'm warning you. I'm angry, I'm frustrated, and I'm shaking. I need to write it down and hear some advice. My sis is just so creepy towards my BF. I can't take it anymore. She was really spoiled by my parents when she was young because she was their first child. She always wants everything, and when we were little she always used to steal my toys / books / clothes, etc. I was never allowed to touch any of her things, but she constantly stole my stuff and was always rude to me. My mom, for some reason, has always preferred her over me, and thus most of the time I was told to let it go. Due to this I have lots of resentment towards her and I don't really like her. I'm honestly sick of her behavior and I just want some peace and quiet in my house. My mom called me 2 weeks ago, pleading to let my sis stay with me because she doesn't have a job right now and she can't stay alone during quarantine. Both my parents are high risk, my mom has heart problems, and my dad is asthmatic, so I thought I should let her stay with me and my BF instead of letting her go to my parents, in case she infects them. There have been a few cases where she is, so I didn't want to risk it. Now I'm honestly starting to regret it. Her behavior is creepy and strange and downright disgusting. First of all, she doesn't respect me at all. She's constantly ignoring me while having long talks with my boyfriend. She doesn't leave my boyfriend alone. She flirts with him and constantly tries to touch him by using cheap tricks. When we watch movies, she pushes me away and tries to snuggle with my boyfriend. She slaps his butt when he walks by and loudly tells him how he has a perky little butt. She also runs her fingers through his hair every day saying, "Whoa, your hair is so soft," or some shit like that. What the fuck? These are all just excuses to touch him. She just needs a chance. Another thing she does is ask him if he has abs so she can touch his torso. Or say, "Did you see this thing I lost? Maybe it's in your pocket, let me see," and proceed to pat his thighs. One time she wanted help with hooking her bra and she just fucking walks out in her underwear. She came to our room and my boyfriend was in the bathroom. The logical thing to do is just fucking ask me. I'm her sister. But what does she do? She just waits for my boyfriend and asks him instead, even though I'm sitting right there. I think I looked very upset because my boyfriend just told her no when she went back to her room. She didn't try that again. This is not even all. My boyfriend and I can't even talk to each other without her interrupting us. She barges into our room with no warning. A few days ago we were trying to have sex, and I don't know how the fuck she realized it and starting banging on the door claiming to have a headache. I opened the door and asked her what was wrong. I told her I had pills for it, but she just said she doesn't trust me and she wanted to talk to my boyfriend instead. After disturbing us, she was suddenly completely fine and her headache disappeared miraculously. She just came into our bedroom and started talking to my boyfriend. We were literally half naked and there was no way she didn't know. This is driving me crazy. What does she want? Why is she like this? It's not like I didn't talk to her. I was so angry she interrupted us because she has been doing this since she came here. I was feeling horny and angry. I just told her to get out and that we needed some alone time. I don't want to go into details, but we had a small argument and she started crying. The thing is, she never accepts it. She's completely blind to what she's doing. She denies doing it and sheds tears, which end up making me feel bad instead. My boyfriend is so uncomfortable by all of this. He just looks exhausted all the time. He's trying his best to be nice, but she's all over him all the time. He's usually very introverted / shy / quiet. He's not very confrontational, and I know this is bothering him. When I talked to him about it, he just commented that it was a bad idea to invite her to stay here. He also said not to invite her ever again. I want to know why she's like this. How can I make her see what she's doing? I'm done dealing with her. I don't want to see her ever again, but she's my parents' favorite child, and no matter how hard I try, I can never escape her. Whenever I try to cut contacts with her, my mom calls me and begs me to forgive her. My mom doesn't want to see her daughters fighting with each other, and she always says how she wants us to be together forever. But I can't do this. How am I supposed to deal with this? Can someone please tell me? My mom is always taking my sister's side in everything. And it's always me who has to be understanding and smart and older when I'm the younger one here. Please tell me I'm not overreacting. How do I make my mom and sister realize that I'm sick of dealing with this? TLDR. My sis tries to flirt with BF and keeps touching him all over the place. She doesn't accept that what she's doing is wrong and I'm sick of her behavior. How do I deal with this? Update. My 20 Fahrenheit sisters, 28 Fahrenheit behavior towards my boyfriend, 21M is horrendous. Sat May 0 to 2020. I'm on mobile. I apologize for any mistakes. Hi, first of all, I'd like to thank each and every one of you for your help. I'm really grateful for the support I've received here, and all those little messages some of you sent me really made me understand the situation I was in. The many comments I read here gave me the strength I needed to talk to my sister. Thank you guys. I should probably tell you that this might not be the perfect badass ending you all were expecting, and I apologize for that. I've always had a hard time standing up against my sister. Like I said in my original post, my boyfriend doesn't like confrontations either, and he's also a huge people pleaser, which makes this situation harder for both of us. Nevertheless, I finally decided to talk to my sister yesterday. She was actually sitting in my living room in her underwear and bra, and I completely lost my shit. I told her multiple times to wear some clothes, but she said it was too hot, which it was not. She then made a small comment about me being insecure about my BF liking her or something like that, and that made me angry. I sat her down and we talked. I told her she was making me uncomfortable. She was making my boyfriend uncomfortable, and we wanted her to leave. She looked very shocked by it, because I don't think I have ever talked to her like that. She immediately apologized, though. She said she didn't know or some bullshit, which I wasn't going to fall for this time. I gave her an ultimatum. She needed to pack her shit and get out in 3 hours. She looked very emotional, and she apologized a lot, said sorry a lot, and told me she loved me. She said she would never intentionally try to hurt me. If I misunderstood her actions, it wasn't her fault. She kept saying she didn't know. She said she was just trying to be friendly to my boyfriend, which is not true at all. I asked her if sexually harassing someone was friendly to her, and she started crying. By this time, my BF, who was in our bedroom, avoiding my sister in her skimpy clothing, came to support me. She kind of directed her questions towards him. She asked him if she was making him uncomfortable. He said yes, and she cried and apologized. She then tried to gain his sympathy by saying that I was kicking her out when she had no place to go. She also lied that I was always mean to her. She completely ignored me and asked him if she could stay. She had nowhere else to go. Of course, he said no. What the fuck did she think? I will forever remember the look on her face. So yeah, she actually refused to leave, cried a lot, and said she was jobless and she didn't have money, no place to stay, no friends, etc. I told her she had no friends because she was a bitch. The first time I said something like this to my sister. She then tried to guilt trip me to let her stay by repeating the words, "I'm your sister. Family, I love you," etc. Me and my boyfriend helped her pack all her stuff and put it next to her car. I told her that she can stay in her car. I didn't care. I wanted her to go. It wasn't really epic like some of you wanted. I was actually crying a little while I was shouting at her because I was shaking so much. At one point my BF had to tell me to calm down. It was just so overwhelming. I'm just glad she's gone. She did leave eventually. She was calling someone and I'm pretty sure she went back to her own flat. Thank God she's not going to my parents because I don't think she knows how to quarantine. I know she won't quarantine, and this was the main reason I was hesitant to kick her out. 3 hours after she left, my mom called me and yelled at me for kicking her out. I shouldn't have been shocked when she accused my BF of bothering my sister. My mom also asked me what kind of man I was dating. I should leave him, etc. I should have expected that. Really, I tried to reason with her, but my mom was just angry at me. She asked me things like, "How can you do this to your own sister?" and similar bullshit. She should be asking my sister at that point. I was so fucking angry. I was in tears and shaking. I just told her to fuck off in anger and hung up. It was just a weird day. I'm proud of myself for finally standing up to my sister, but I also don't really feel like getting up from my bed. My BF is back to his cheerful self, and I'm happy about that, but I just feel like such an idiot. I should have realized my mom would never take my side a long time ago. I just don't understand what I did to make my mom so angry at me. Why doesn't she love me? I have done everything she asked me to do, but she never takes my side in things. I just want her to fucking love me and support me for once. It just never happens, and I feel like I'm a fucking idiot for even trying. I think she regrets I was even born. Anyway, fuck that. I'm done trying to reason with them. My mom will never believe me. Pretty sure my sister lied to her. So mom keeps calling and trying to speak to my BF. I'm currently thinking of cutting off all of my family. All they do is make me feel like shit. I deserve better than that. My boyfriend deserves better than that. I apologize for venting. What's done is done. I don't regret it. I'm glad I have my boyfriend and he loves me unlike my family. And we finally have some alone time. He's been so moody, but right now he's actually cooking and stuff. And he hasn't done that ever since sister came here. So yeah, I'm glad she's gone. My boyfriend is glad she's gone. I finally have some peace and quiet in my home. Thank you so much to everyone. I don't think I can thank you all enough. Some of you talked to me, sent me messages, and it really opened my eyes. I'll take care of myself and my boyfriend now. Thank you. Edit. Thank you everyone. I've been reading your comments. I'm still shocked by the support I've received here. Please know that I appreciate it so much, even though I may not be able to reply. Thank you. Next story. I 27 am hurt the feelings of my girlfriend's 12th sister 21 Fahrenheit while I was performing stand-up. Now my girlfriend won't talk to me. I'm a somewhat successful 27-year-old comic working my way up in the comedy scene in the city I'm living in. I'm dating a 28-year-old woman from here, and she is very supportive of my career as I am with hers. She has a 21-year-old little sister that I think is a spoiled sorority brat, but I very rarely see her, so I pay her very little mind. Just the other night I was performing at a comedy club and my girlfriend was coming to watch me perform. The night before the show, she informed me that her little sister was coming to the show with some friends. To me, this news was a possible red flag. To give some background, my girlfriend comes from a pretty affluent background, where ritzy vacations and luxuries were the norm, whereas I come from quite the opposite. I come from a large family where we had to wear the busted pair of shoes for a little bit longer until the money was finally scraped together. For a lot of people, this difference could be a little intimidating, but it's never been a big issue. She is very level-headed, works hard, and never looks down on others not as fortunate as her or her family. Her sister, on the other hand, is quite the opposite. She goes to a university that is completely paid for, has all the niceties, and lets you know when you don't. She can get rude with people quite easily, especially when she's dealing with someone working a low-pay job or someone that she views as lower in status. Now I've only acted as a silent observer to her behavior because I've only seen her a handful of times and I quite frankly didn't want to deal with her. When my girlfriend told me she was coming to watch me perform, I grew pretty alarmed. The people that I work with, and most of the comedy crowd for that matter, is a pretty working class group of people. They deal with hard truths and can laugh when they are made fun of. Whenever my girlfriend's sister gets put in similar situations, she definitely does not have the same reaction. In fact, she handles it just about as well as Vince Wilford finding out the buffet closed. I also went with her and my girlfriend to a small concert at a bar, and she was rude and disrespectful to the performers the whole time. I told my girlfriend my concerns about her sister coming. She wouldn't enjoy herself. She would make a scene, or she would interrupt another comic set. The ultimate sin. My girlfriend said it wouldn't be a problem. I buckled and said that she could come, but I would not be held liable for whatever happened in the club. I tend to be playful when shutting down hecklers, but I know the 3 other comics performing and they are definitely not. I have a 3-strike rule, but they swing like goddamn Sammy Sosa on the first pitch. She agreed and that was that until the next day. We met the sister and friends beforehand and went to the club. The first comic was a lady I know, and she was spot on that night. She's by no means a pretty woman, so the girls started making sly comments to each other about it until I told them to cut it out, which they did. I then went backstage to the green room, but from the little bits I saw and heard, they were on fairly good behavior. Then my set happened. My first 6 or 7 minutes started out really well. The crowd was great and I felt in the zone. I then started working through a bit about North Face being tacky, and this proved to be the catalyst for the sister and her friends. They started talking loudly in the back, to which I told them to stop. I looked to my girlfriend to corral them in and provide some silent reinforcements. Those reinforcements never came. About 2 minutes later, I was working through a piece about being hairy, to which the sister made a comment. At this point, I noticed she and her friends had put down quite a few drinky poos, so basically I started making fun of them being sloppy drunks. This shut them up for a little bit. I then had a piece about my mom, to which the little sister basically made a loud comment about my mom being a slut. She threw a 3rd pitch and I choked up on the bat and began to swing away like Joaquin Phoenix in a room full of Marvin the Martians. I called her out for being a petulant rich girl, made fun of her appearance, and ended up calling her cunt drunkula. The crowd was really into it, so I was eventually able to cut off the set with some grace, but I was livid. When the crowd left and the lights went up, the sister came up to me and started getting in my face. I walked back into a green room and asked a bouncer to take care of it, and she eventually left with her friends. As I saw my girlfriend afterwards, she seemed a little upset. I told her that I was furious that she didn't help me out with controlling her sister. She asked why I was so upset whenever the set went so well. I think there was a little passive aggression in the question. I told her that even though that set went well, if a heckler catches me on a night where I'm not on my game, it fucks my entire performance. We eventually cut the conversation and drove home. The next day, my girlfriend's sister left a message for my girlfriend in tears about how the night went. She was upset at the things I said and wanted an apology. I told my girlfriend that was not going to happen, and I deserved an apology. Even though the sister doesn't view what I do as a job, that is my livelihood. If I pulled a similarly disruptive stunt in someone else's place of work, I would most likely be arrested. My girlfriend did not take to this well and hasn't talked to me for the last 2 days. Besides small talk at dinner, I think she may be upset about the rich girl comments I made to her sister. To be honest, I do get a little resentful when I hear the stories of my girlfriend's life of affluence growing up. But I never bring this up, and I never try to make her feel pity for the way I grew up. My question is, what should be the next course of action? I refuse to even look at her sister until she brings an apology with her. But I love my girlfriend and not talking to her is killing me. How should I handle this nightmare of a situation? TLDR. Girlfriend's sister heckled me while I was performing stand-up. I went nuclear on her ass, and now girlfriend won't speak to me. Edit. I'm sitting down this afternoon to talk to my girlfriend about the whole thing when she gets back from lunch. Her tone seemed fairly neutral on the phone, so I'm just playing it by ear until then. Update. Just a little clarification on my last post. At the show, I didn't use any personal information while stopping my girlfriend's sister from heckling. I just used what was visible. I didn't even mention that I knew her. I also should have mentioned that this show I was doing was a big deal for me. This venue I was at is the kind of place you perform at and then shortly afterwards start receiving calls to do televised comedy specials. If I went overboard with the comments, it's because if I lost the crowd in this show, that could have been really bad for my career. That's not to excuse what I said or how I said it, just some background. So a lot has happened since my last post about the aftermath of my girlfriend's sister visiting my comedy show. On Monday, I was returning back to my apartment after doing a spot for a radio station. As I walked back in, I saw that my girlfriend's dad was there and waiting to talk with me. He had stopped by to say hello to my girlfriend, but apparently his real reason for stopping by was to talk to me. He's normally a pretty even-keeled guy, but he was definitely miffed that day. Basically, he wanted to talk with me about what went down at the comedy club the previous week. We sat down in the dining room and I could tell this discussion would be a long one. My girlfriend's sister told him about the show, and he was justifiably upset that I called his daughter a cunt. I stayed cool and just told him that I wasn't saying it to intentionally hurt his daughter's feelings. I was simply trying to get back control of my show and the audience. He kept on about how awful that was, and it sounded like he didn't get the whole story from his daughter. I asked him if I could give my side of the story, just so he had some frame of reference, to which he let me. I told him about her interrupting and heckling numerous times after my initial concerns. I said that I had gotten carried away with my choice of words, but I had to do that in order to keep the crowd. I didn't pose this as an excuse, just where I was coming from. He wasn't as upset, but he still was angry. He started hounding me about my line of work and what kind of job makes you call people that. Now, I think this line of questions stemmed from some deep negative feelings about my career as a comic. We ventured onto that topic fairly soon. I told him that I get it. It's not the most traditional or stable job. My girlfriend went to a very prestigious university, and her friends are getting married to doctors, lawyers, and executives, and having lovely families. There is nothing wrong with those people, their professions, or their way of life, but that's just not me. It seemed that my girlfriend's father thought that I just performed some stand-up every now and then and just farted around all day. I told him about what I really do and how I prepare. I spend a lot of time writing for some small magazines and newspapers. I do comedy spots at radio stations, and I do comedy and improv lessons. If I'm not doing that, I'm writing my own stuff or a myriad of other performance-related tasks. After this, he seemed to back off a whole bunch, but he still was pretty upset about the cunt drunkala comment. I explained that the remark was definitely heavy-handed, but it would not have been said if there was no heckling. I also explained that I would be getting in contact with the sister soon to talk about the events of that evening. He seemed to like that course of action and left shortly afterwards. I still don't think my girlfriend's dad thinks super highly of my career, but I feel like that was the best face-to-face conversation we've had, and he at least now knows that I work hard and am passionate about my career. He also wasn't completely pacified, but that's alright, I can work on that after all this stuff. After this, my girlfriend and I got a chance to talk about the evening at the comedy club. I said that I'm sorry for going so nuclear on her sister. She said that she wasn't mad about this or even the use of the word cunt, but the negative comments I made about her sister being a rich girl. She wanted to know if I felt the same way about her. I told her that while I do seem to have an inferiority complex when it comes to people from wealthy backgrounds, I view her as the woman that I love, not Cruella de Vil. I also apologized if my comments made her feel undervalued. That was not my intent. She asked me some more specifics about my upbringing, and I told her a little more in detail. She asked me if I thought about counseling to work through some of these issues, and I said that I'd be down for that. Let's face it, a comedian is only as good as shrink. I'm scheduled for a few appointments in the upcoming weeks. If I can get the counselor to laugh, that's a win for me. She apologized for not getting her sister to be quiet during the set. She said the whole thing seemed like a nightmare and she kind of froze up when her sister started yelling. I told her that I accepted her apology and offered to meet with her sister soon to go over the events of the evening. She seemed happy about that, and this weekend we'll both be meeting her sister over lunch. So far, it seems like a lot of these issues are slowly but surely getting resolved through some solid communication. Now we'll just see how the meeting with the sister goes. I'll be sure to keep everyone updated. TLDR, I talked with girlfriend's father about the comments, then with my girlfriend. While not everything is completely perfect, there seems to be a lot more understanding from all parties, myself included. We'll be meeting shortly with girlfriend's sister. Final update. Sorry about taking forever to reply. I got crazy busy over these last couple of months. When I last left off, I was set to meet up with my girlfriend's sister, which we did. So, my girlfriend and I met up in the parking lot of this restaurant. I had just finished a writing session at a magazine office, and she had just finished with work. We make our way to the restaurant and sit down. The sister is already there and waiting. We sit down and attempt to start some small talk, but she's noticeably upset. As we're looking through the menu, her father comes into the restaurant and sits down at our table. This caught me way off guard. We sit awkwardly for about 5 minutes until I eventually say, "All right, let's get this out on the table. Look, sister, the other night I called you a name that was pretty harsh. I'm sorry that your feelings got hurt, but you heckled me during my set. That is extremely rude. It would be like if I came to your job and started throwing around your materials while you were working." I was going to go on and ask for an apology until my girlfriend's dad piped up and said to me, "Are you not going to even apologize?" I looked at my girlfriend, who was kind of shying away from the whole scene, and looked back at him and said, "No, I'm not." This was a huge opportunity for me, and if she would have thrown me off my game, it could have seriously messed up my career. The sister began to talk about how embarrassed I made her in front of her friends and how the C word was so offensive. At this point, my girlfriend also said, "Yeah, you didn't have to be that rude." To me, I was flabbergasted. I thought she was going to back me up on this. I thought we had agreed on how shitty her sister's behavior was. For the next 10 minutes or so, I was somewhat speechless, which for me is a rarity, as they told me how out of line I was. My girlfriend wasn't super vocal, but she still jumped in occasionally. It got to a point where I eventually said, "This is ridiculous. I didn't come here to be lectured. I'm leaving." I left the restaurant and drove home. My girlfriend called me from and tried to get me to come back. I replied, "There's no way I'm going back to that lion's den. I want to talk about this when you get back home." About an hour later, she arrives at the apartment. I asked her, "What the hell was that?" She went on to tell me how when she talked to her sister and parents and realized that what I said was really mean and I should have been more apologetic. I thought there was an understanding all around, but I was way wrong. We'd never had any big-time disagreements or discussions, but that night we had it out. I guess she was beginning to feel some pretty big resentment about my career. She had just gotten a promotion recently, and she said she lied to her co-workers about my job to not feel embarrassed. This blew me away. I asked her straight up, "Do I embarrass you?" She said, "Yes." At this point, I grabbed my things and left for a friend's house. I was too upset to stay the evening. I went back 2 days later, and for the next week or so, we barely talked. Then one evening, she asked to talk to me. She said, "Look, I think I've came to the realization that we are two wildly different people and I don't think we can reconcile that. I think it'd be best if we broke up." My first thought was to say no, but as I began to think about it more, she was right. I wasn't exactly what she was looking for, and I don't want to be with someone that feels embarrassed around me. I spent the next 2 weeks looking for a place and moved out. The whole thing went down really civilly. She gave me time to get my things in order. I'm not mad at her. She has every right to not date me. I hope she's not mad at me, but if she is, oh well. Obviously dating someone is fun, but being single is also nice because I can focus more on my writing and career, which I think is really starting to take off. So in a way, it's not a happy ending, but it is a happy ending. Tell Doctor went to dinner with girlfriend to confront her sister. Dad showed up, and they dogpiled on me. I left. Girlfriend and I fought later that evening and eventually broke up a week later. I'm on my own now and excited for whatever's next.